Exciting! Neo Geo! Max 330メガの劇的体験 Neo Geo System SNK.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series, Neo Nostalgia, where I take a look at my favorite Neo Geo games of all time. Today we got Strikers 1945 Plus for you. Now I'm not going to lie and say this is the best shmup on the platform, it's just a really good one that I thoroughly enjoy playing. This is kind of like a remix of the first 1945 and the second one on a vertical screen. I absolutely love the bullet patterns in this game, but let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. It's not a very pretty game. It's drab, the colors aren't great, and there's not a lot of animations in the background. That doesn't really matter, we're here for the mechanics and they are solid, but honestly, it's not something that you're going to call a looker. This game is perfectly fine, not one of the prettiest games on the Neo Geo. But what I do love about it is the setting and the mechanics. I love the bullet patterns in this game. They have a mix of sort of those like geometric shapes that space themselves out and more organic shapes at the same time, and I love that they're all very colorful and easy to spot. This is a difficult game, it's a game that you need to practice to get better at, but if you like a shmup, you're gonna love this one. Just don't come into it expecting those amazing Neo Geo graphics that we all know and love. But the first boss here, getting through without taking a death isn't that hard. The first death I took was because I looked away from the screen. Cardinal sin in shmups, don't do it no matter if your phone is ringing or not. But moving right on to the second stage, I do love a good World War II shmup as well. It's not a sci-fi shmup. Sci-fi is so endemic in the shmup genre, and I have no problem with a sci-fi shmup, but it is nice now and again to get away from that theming and to get into the kind of World War II more aspect. We have battleships, submarines, but all of these projectiles moving around the screen at once, navigating around all of that just feels so good in this game. The controls are responsive, the patterns are good, the bomb is actually an assist plane that will block shots for you for a certain set period of time, and holding down the shot button will get you a super shot that you can then unleash on your opponents. There's a lot of strategy in 1945 Plus, and that's why I love the game so much. There's different ways to play, different ways to approach things, but you're always having a really good time. It's just unfortunate that it is, I'm going to just say it, it's ugly as sin. These big borders, the water that's nothing but a 2D texture that doesn't animate whatsoever. That's just a little bit of a disappointment. Now in some areas like this, it can actually look relatively good. It kind of has a satellite photo vibe to it, something that you wouldn't be unfamiliar with during the war, well not World War II, but later wars, that top-down perspective of the battlefield. And when it does throw a couple more colors in, those olive greens and the plains, that kind of gray of the grass, that brown there, it does have a vibe. It's just not pretty, and it always gets knocked for not being a very pretty game. But if we can look past that, it's got a great personality, and isn't that all that really matters? It's just fun, and I feel like a lot of people are going to say they've either played this and didn't think much about it, or they've never played it before, because there are a lot of Strikers games. This was exclusive to the Neo Geo MVS. If you see an AES copy out there, do not buy it. It is not legitimate. It is a bootleg. But if you've got an MVS or a MiSTer FPGA, this is a spectacular shmup to check out. It's definitely not on the level of something like Blazing Star in the looks department, but in the gameplay department it definitely holds its own, and I love sort of these pre-rendered sprites for the transformations to each boss. Every boss has at least 2 stages, some have 3, and each one have different mechanics as far as their shots are concerned. To take a death there, but honestly until you get to like the last 2 stages in this game, if you take a death, it's 100% on you. The last 2 stages are exceedingly difficult, but you can learn them. But as we move on here, we get into more of a city and the colors shift over to this blue and green. I actually do like the color usage in this game. I've got no issue with that. I just wish that there was more going on in the background, even though you're not technically supposed to look at the graphics on a shmup. Just pay attention to your plane and make sure it's avoiding the bullets. It would be fun if we got a little bit more. And I think that's why this game gets disregarded. But the soundtrack, I love it. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I will be right back. Just a great soundtrack. Now that we're onto the second stage of this boss, I absolutely love the design of him, and I love how the bomb functions in this game. It is so unique. It is not going to clear the bullets off the screen. It'll block some of them for you, but it's not an instant guarantee that you will not die. It acts as a shield that also attacks your opponent, and I actually really like that. It's a very creative design, and I do love the bullet patterns as well. I think maybe I was being too harsh on the backgrounds earlier as I paused to let you listen to the soundtrack. I thought more about it, and it's not even fair for me to critique a game for being not the most visually interesting thing on the Neo Geo, because once you disregard the visuals and their quality and you just focus strictly on the gameplay, I think this game is spectacular. I love the genre, the theming of it being World War II. I love the bullet patterns. I love the mix of organic and geometric shapes. It is just that much fun, and it is a highly challenging game that if you want to get that 1cc on, you're going to have to practice. It's like I said, this isn't going to get compared visually to Pulsar or Blazing Star or any of those type of games, but if you compare it on a gameplay level, difficulty, ability to learn, replayability, and just straight shmup fun, it definitely does match them, because getting through this pattern right here, unleashing that plane at the right time, I get the same sense of accomplishment playing this game that I do any other great shmup, and that's how I kind of judge a shmup. Do I have that feeling of wanting to learn more, wanting to get better when I get through a complex pattern, feeling really great about myself? 100%. And I do love the enemy designs as well, being like this mechanical organic nature. It is a machine, but it's moving around kind of like a turtle, except with more legs, like a tarantula mixed in there with that giant gun on its back. It is a fun visual design, and as far as the sprites for your opponents and the bosses, they do look quite good, so definitely high marks in that respect as well. As we move on to another stage, each stage only lasts for like 2 minutes. It's like half of the stage is just dedicated to shooting your opponent, and half of the stage is that big boss encounter. In some ways this isn't a pure boss rush mode, but it feels like getting to the boss is half of what's going on here, because the bosses are so big and take up so much of each individual level, and that is not a bad thing at all. I actually quite like that, because the bosses are a ton of fun. But you will see as we get further into the game, we get out of those cities, we get out of those jungles and deserts, and start getting into way more mechanical of an area that doesn't really feel like 1945 at all. It kind of feels more futuristic in a really good way. But I know I said I do love the soundtrack, so I'm going to let you do is listen to it for about 30 seconds here, and I'll come back and talk more about why Strikers 1945 Plus is definitely a game you should have on your list to play if you haven't already done it. But enjoy again. Just a really good soundtrack, and as we get further into the game, I don't think I ever mentioned this game was developed by Psiyko, who has a long lineage of developing awesome shmups, and it's definitely one of them. And you do get some visual trickery here and there, kind of like in Blazing Star where we get that tunnel that we fall down into. The designers did want to show you something here and there. Would it be more fun if the game had these visual tricks and a little bit of style all the way throughout? I think it would, but when you do get it, it does look really fun. Falling down into this pit, those pre-rendered graphics. Neo Geo had the ability to do this really well. It is a very Neo Geo style, and when you actually defeat the boss, I love how it slowly comes to a stop and we fly out of it. It's just a fun little moment in a game that's really just focusing on avoiding the bullets. But honestly, it's just a really fun game in general. When we get to the final boss, I just love this. It's kind of like an octopus. It doesn't even seem like 1945 anymore. We're just in an alternate reality where something like this can exist. It has those, tentacles up top, kind of look like antenna, very organic feeling. And just like the boss being organic, the bullet patterns feel organic as well. And I do like that this game isn't just the geometric shapes for bosses, it gives you a little bit of both. I love that combination of that kind of swirling pattern along with bullets that just seem to randomly do whatever they want, because when you can avoid both of them, it feels great. But that's Strikers 1945 Plus. I definitely recommend it. It is not the prettiest game on the Neo Geo. I'm really not sure what end of this boss we're looking at. That kind of looks like a certain something to me. Don't leave me a comment down below. I'm sure it'll get eaten up by the comment filter if you see what I see. But outside of whatever the hell that thing is, this game is absolutely spectacular from a gameplay perspective. I can't recommend it enough. I'll have another video in the Neo Geo series next Tuesday. I'll have videos throughout the week as well. And if you never played Strikers 1945, you could do a lot worse. See you guys next time. Bye bye.